Hello and welcome to the TRBusiness video channel. I'm here with Alan Brennan, who is the Managing Director of DC Global Travel Retail, which is part of the DC Group. Thank you for coming here and talking to us today. And just want to get a bit more of an idea of what actually DC Group or dcGTR actually does and what it's hoping to bring to the what some people may call archaic parts of the duty-free and travel retail industry.
Yes, thank you, Charlotte. dcGTR was, just to give you a little bit of background, was set up launched on the 1st of March this year, so still very new, only 6 months in. Ironically, TFWA Asia Pacific show was our first show. We presented at the conference there and to demonstrate a number of the digital tools. Essentially, dcGTR is part of, it's a business unit of DC Group, which is a UK-based shopper marketing agency that's been established and privately owned since '98. And they work extensively with large FMCG companies such as Unilever and Coca-Cola, Samsung, HP, to name a few. I could see, you know, straight away in terms of these digital tools, which ultimately allow brand owners to better understand what drives behaviour at the point of engagement. And I could see a much slightly broader application for global travel retail across multiple stakeholders, because the technology doesn't have any boundaries in terms of its application. So dcGTR was born. We're bringing a lot of these digital tools to this channel in terms of global travel retail. We're engaging with airport owner operators, retailers, brands and third-party agencies. And that gives you an indication on the application of the technology.
The breadth, yeah.
Depth and breadth of the technology. And essentially, we're allowing those stakeholders to be able to fundamentally better understand what drives purchase at different touch points on the shopper journey. And the business competencies, if you like, is really built on 3 pillars. And this is create, research, and empower. And in simple terms, in the technology we're using is virtual reality, augmented reality, immersive reality, to name but a few, and mixed reality as well. And essentially in the first pillar, which is create, we can create virtually anything in the virtual world, if you excuse the pun. So anything from master planning, from total airport environments right down to physical product on a shelf and everything in between, meaning store, category, brand activation, product. So we're able to bring that to life virtually. We're able to transmit that on standard sort of internet connection and also immerse an individual in that environment. So a good example of that would be if a retailer is designing a new store. A lot of store designs are very creative and brilliantly designed. But one of the question marks is how fundamental does insight play in that design in terms of shopper insight?
Yep, the customer journey.
Correct, and is it the most efficient in terms of navigation through there and the most engaging, shall we say? So this would allow a retailer effectively to take their concept, their design, which maybe is not signed off, and you know there may be a number of elements there which they are questioning how relevant it is in terms of a global business, in terms of appealing to high-spending Chinese as an example versus millennials from Europe, to give another example. So we're able to take a basic CAD drawing or render, and in some cases just a photograph, and rebuild it virtually. They can be in that environment. They can essentially move around that environment 360. We can change anything in that environment to see the look, and we can look at different segmentation layouts to see which is the best for driving purchasing behaviour. I think the key element there, which leads on to the second pillar, and all three pillars can be integrated if necessary, but it can also be standalone. So if we created this virtual retail store new concept, we can then actually research it with your target audience. So we can then see, you know, how the Chinese shopper behaves in this environment, how they navigate, what elements of communication work, what should be the segmentation layout within the categories, what should the adjacent categories should be to build the basket as they go through the store. And essentially that means that ultimately the output from that research, which can be done online.
Oh, well, I was going to ask, how do you perform this sort of...
So they can literally be in that environment online and do the journey through the store, different journeys, different communications in terms of brand comms, category activation and so on. So the output of which then allows a retailer to better understand, well, actually, despite the internal view that this was the best elements of the design, actually what the shopper is telling us is something slightly different. Therefore, in order to maximize the engagement and conversion of our target shopper, we are better to go with this output from the design. So it allows them to make more informed decisions, which are insight driven, and ultimately the end result should be a better one. It also gives them quite a lot of power in terms of any future concession bidding to say that actually not only does the design look fantastic and it's cutting edge with both its digital and physical elements within the shopper journey, we've also tested it with your high spending shoppers.
Fantastic. I imagine that retailers are very interested in the prospect of this. I was also thinking about airports, you guys working directly with airports to use actually in tender documents. Could you ever see...
Yes, that's been put to us in a sense that as a point of differentiation and competitive advantage. You know, one scenario is another one is an incumbent retailer has the data from the existing store versus the new store, and they can match very quickly by the purchasing behavior online what the impact is on basket spend in terms of by category segmentation, because they've got the pre and the potential post. So you know, it becomes extremely powerful once the data is behind it in terms of that shopping behaviour.
So you mentioned the three pillars. Just reiterate those once again. So create, research,
and empower. And so the last one. So essentially, just coming back to the second one, which is research. So anything we create, we can research. But we can also take bespoke research in as well, where certain brands are saying, well, actually, we're looking at our next generation product design or brand comm, value messages or brand activation. And again, we want to research it to understand, is it the actual best design which will engage our targeted shoppers based on the colour scheme, the elements of the design, and is appealing and engaging with, ultimately will mean that the conversion level increases. So essentially it allows them to research before they have the big capex investment in the mobilization and rollout of the activation. Normally today a lot of the insights only become apparent when the activation is live.
Almost like a soft
if only on hindsight we knew what we know now. Well, actually the VR research tool allows you to do that.
Yeah, very powerful technology.
And the last one is in Power, which is an ecosystem of digital apps, which is centered on really, I suppose, store compliance, a knowledge hub, which is a playbook, and learning and development. And I'll explain those in a little bit detail. So the store compliance is we've got an app called Store Checker, which allows an individual from said company to go into a retail environment and essentially do a store audit based on a preset number of checks, which is customized based on that client. They can also take video footage and stills, and all done offline. soon as they come back into a Wi-Fi area or online on their smartphone or tablet, that information is uploaded into a cloud and downloaded into the server, which the appropriate head of sales or head of operations then will get a dashboard of how compliant that store was, and more importantly, what the physical execution was of that store, what's happening, what elements are non-compliant, and what are we doing about it. So you can imagine in a global operation, if you've got people going into Singapore this morning, in the Western world, they're coming in, they log on, and they say, oh, I see we've been in Singapore, Terminal 2, and I can see that we've achieved 90% compliancy. It also helps them enormously to understanding and knowing what they've got where, and what the condition of that as well, which is also part of ensuring that the execution is flawless in store, and that it's fully compliant in terms of best practice. The second one is a playbook, which is essentially a depository app, which can have a digital library of endless amounts of information. So from training manuals, planogramming, marketing decks, customer decks, key accounts, and so on and so on and so on. Laptop, tablet and smartphone, all contained in one central depository. Currently, a lot of large organizations within travel retail, field sales will be looking to engage with multiple departments to try and pull this information together rather than having it in the palm of the hand, hence the empowerment in the power of the hand. It's very extensively used by companies such as Unilever, very, very powerful. The great thing is that the customer, it's their asset, they continually can update. They can also track the access in terms of that information and limit the access depending on where they are in the world, or just give them access that's relevant.
So it's customizable in that sense.
Fully customizable, and they own the asset, they can also fully update it. It's not like the sunk cost and that's it. It's something that's continually evolving all of the time. And then there's the learning and development tool, which is e-learning, where we built platforms for certain brand owners who wanted to ensure that the execution, both for the domestic and travel retail division, consistently was a great one in terms of the brand experience for the shopper. Difficult to do in a global business, so we developed an app which is a replica of one of their stores, but we had different examples of that, and within that store there's 22 wave points of information. There's also some good practice, bad practice which the individual has to correct. It's up to 8 languages, and it's a serious piece of kit. A lot of gamification has been used in it. Don't have to necessarily go that far, but not only is it a brilliant piece of kit, but it's a serious piece of kit in the sense that the numbers after the initial 12 months are quite serious, in a sense that they now have over 400 users worldwide. They have done the equivalent of over 100 face-to-face workshops based on the digital time that team members have been on it. Their saving costs on face-to-face have been substantial, in hundreds of thousands in learning and development. And most importantly, the mystery shopper scores for those stores that have gone through the academy have increased by 26%.
Well, that's the bit everyone's listening out for.
Correct.
Isn't it? Yeah,
and I think the final, you could have the best piece of technology in the world, but if your targeted user is not using it because it's overly complicated, they just won't use it. With this particular Academy app we've developed, the user satisfaction rate is 96%. So, it's a fantastic learning tool, bilingual, continually can be updated at the push of a button, and hugely successful. And it means also, there's no need to travel. All can be done
Doesn't
online,
help
offline.
traffic figures, does it really?
Not necessarily, but from a carbon footprint point of view, it's a positive.
True, very true. Well, thank you so much for your time today. I wish we had some more time, but unfortunately we have to end it there. But as I said, thank you so much. It sounds absolutely fascinating, and I'm sure I'll continue to get updates from you with your fantastic progress from this point forward.
You will do. Thank you very much, Charlotte.